beauty of marketing is that there's a lot of space for creativity and experimentation and innovation. But at the same time, instead of just making stuff up, we can look at data and see what clues does the data tell us about what might be more right strategies. And so for my undergrads, of course, it was kind of challenging because if they got too creative, I would say, like, where is the data to support this creativity? I'm not saying it's not a great idea, but the focus here is that we want to have data-driven decisions. So I'm going to hold you accountable that any idea you have has to come somewhere from the data. Separately, I would encourage you to experiment, but that's a different tactic than we're working with here. One of the challenges with marketing and the beauties of marketing really is there's a lot of room for creativity. And so what I often would see people say is, well, how about if we ABC? And which is kind of a guess. There's a good role for intuition, so guessing is not bad. But data-driven marketing says, okay, so this is a possibility, an idea that we could do. Let's think for a minute. What data do we have that might help us understand if this is a worthwhile investment of our time and money? So let's understand what makes more sense versus less sense. So let me give you an example. Even with one of our programs, we were changing the curriculum and innovating it, and the question came up about majors. Should we have majors? And we said, yes, we think we want to have majors. Most people feel comfortable that they have a major and they think that's important. So we should reflect that. And the question was, well, how many classes should be required in a major? 3, 4, or 5? Well, we could pick any number we want. Or what I suggested we do, which was pretty simple, is let's audit the top tier business schools and let's see how many classes they have in a major. So as it turned out, the most frequent was 4, and a few exceptions of 5 or 6, maybe a few exceptions of 3. So you could argue that, well, if everybody or the majority of schools are offering 4 classes in a major, then 4 is the norm. Therefore, 4 should probably be your default. So rather than just picking or guessing, you can use some simple data to confirm what your idea ought to be. Yeah, and it might be that you'd pick some things and say, okay, we're just going to experiment because we don't have any data that informs us. But I think it's helpful if you call that out and say, this is an experiment, it's a hypothesis. And then what you do is you ask, well, what indicators will we look for to see if this hypothesis was right or not? And so that kind of helps bring a more data-centric approach. Another example is that we were debating about who some of the target segments were for our evening MBA program. And one of the things that we discovered is that the GMAT program itself had done a study and looked at different segments of potential business school MBA students. And they actually had segments that preferred a part-time MBA program. So we didn't have to go and do all this primary research, but it gave us a sense of how big is this group, what changes are occurring in this group, and what are their underlying needs. So it gave us a huge leg up simply because we asked the question, hey, has anybody studied this? Is there any information? I mean, that's all secondary data, but it's still better than us guessing. And that intermediate step, it could be information session, but it could be open an email, it could be whatever activities you're doing, something between I raise my hand and I apply. And probably there's multiple touch points between I raise my hand and I apply. So there's different ways you can actually look at that. Now, as a general rule, what I tell people is from the top of the funnel to the bottom of the funnel, sort of a good conversion rate is about 10%. And if you think about things like email open rates, they're between 2 and 3%. Coupon redemption rates are around 2 to 3%. And sometimes people are really surprised that when we do marketing, you should expect that 90% of people are not going to do what you wanted. So when you get a conversion rate of 10%, you should pat yourself on the back like, that's good. But if you do the math, if you need 50 bodies and seats and you get a 10% conversion rate, then you need 500 leads. If you need 100 bodies and seats, you need 1,000 leads. So if you can improve your conversion rate to something like 40%, then you have a lot less need for all that lead gen.
Thank you for tuning into the Education Marketing Insider by Grow Enrollments. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel to stay updated. Stay tuned.